Okay, so now we've had a look at that. Let's go into After Effects and I'll explain to you a little bit more about what we're doing. The first shot you'll notice is of a house, and this is the original shot that I went out and got with my camera. And there's a couple of things about this shot which you'll notice. First of all, is this blown out sky over here. The second thing you'll probably notice is the fact that in the shot that I just showed you, the light was on in this window, and here it's not. You'll also notice the sky has been replaced, and you'll also notice that the colour grading is quite harsh and it's got this really uneasy green tint to it. This was all something that I intended when I actually did the shot. In the second shot, you'll notice that we've got this relatively normal looking gargoyle face, and what we've done is over time we've animated the eyebrows to give this really nice evil frown and give that gargoyle a bit more of a character. So that's what we're going to be creating today. We're going to be looking at 3 different things. So this tutorial, although it's one tutorial, will be split into 3 different sections. The first section is going to look at how to do this wonderful sky replacement that you see here. The second part is going to be specifically toward the colour grading of the shot. And the third section is going to be creating this wonderful animation where the eyebrows frown evilly at its victim, and then at the end they unfrown. There we go. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the first section, sky replacement. Okay, so here's section 1, sky replacement. Before we begin, I'm going to show you my setup here in After Effects. As you notice, I've got 2 folders set up. One's called Comp, one's called Footage. I've also got these 2 elements here, which I'll explain in a moment. It's really important to keep your workspace really tidy, and I know for anybody who's used After Effects at any length of time, that's going to be a really basic thing that you're probably doing anyway. But for anybody who's new to this, keep your projects nice and tidy, because if you're using a lot of comps, what's going to happen is it's going to get very messy, and it's going to be very difficult to find things. So just spending a little time before you start your compositions and your effects, just to make sure it's nice and organized and nice and tidy, is going to save you a lot of time. I've got 2 folders here, my footage, this is all my raw footage here, and my compositions, which at the moment doesn't have anything in it. I've got this, which is my anamorphic PSD file, which I created inside of Photoshop because I do love anamorphic as an aspect ratio. That is optional for you. You can keep it in widescreen or 4:3 if that's what you like, but for this particular tutorial I'm going to be working at creating my composition and giving it an anamorphic look. And I've also got my sky here, and this is the sky that we're going to use to replace. This is an image gotten from Flickr. You have to be very careful when getting photos from Flickr or anywhere else, because there's a lot of copyright issues. People get a little bit angry if they haven't given you permission to use their photographs. So the best way to get around that is when you go onto Flickr, click on the advanced search options, so go down to the bottom and tick the checkbox for view only those with Creative Commons license, and then there's 2 more tick boxes underneath, use commercially and freedom to modify, and tick those 2 as well, and you will only get images where people have given you permission to use them commercially and change them as you want. That gets around all kinds of copyright issues, especially when you're working with a client. So without further ado, let's begin. We're going to start off by getting our house MPEG, and we're going to drag it down to a new composition, and we're going to choose just the section that we want to keep. And I want just this man walks into the shot and looks up at the window, and that's the section that I want just there. It's about 6 seconds long. It has gone to where my current time indicator is, which now tells me that's where the start of the composition will be. And I'm going to move forward to 8 seconds. I'm going to hit N, which is going to make it the end of my composition. And I'm just going to right click on the work area bar and go down to Trim Comp Work Area, and that's now going to be my full composition. There we go. Okay, So the first thing that I want to do, I want to duplicate my footage twice. I'm going to hit Control on the keyboard and hit D twice, and that gives me 3 instances of the same thing, and I'm just going to rename them. The first one's going to be my alpha matte. This is going to be my empty sky, and this is going to be my filler. Okay, and then all 3 of these layers are going to have very, very specific jobs. I'm just going to shut off the bottom 2, and I'm going to create what's called an alpha matte. For anybody who doesn't know what an alpha matte is, an alpha matte is an image that consists of 2 colours, black and white, and anything in between that you can have greys. And basically what that image tells the computer is everything that's white has to be visible and everything that's black has to be invisible. The best way to explain that really is just to show you what I'm going to do. So in order to create an alpha matte here, I'm just going to go to Effect, Color Correction, Colorama. This is a very powerful filter and it's going to help you do a lot. What we're going to do is we're going to look at mainly this output cycle. We're not going to worry about any more of these settings. It's just this color wheel here where the power of this effect really comes into play. And we're going to go to Use Preset Palette, Ramp Gray. And what that does, it turns into a grayscale image. And we're going to click it about 9 o'clock and choose black and watch what happens. This is what I mean about a 2-tone color image. Okay, here we've got a white area, and this is telling the computer when I turn it into an alpha matte, everything in this white area has to be visible. Now for those of you wondering, well, isn't the sky supposed to be invisible? We're going to do a process later on which is going to invert that so that the sky is the thing that's invisible. And I'm just going to click just above that black triangle and make another white triangle, and that's just going to define the black and the white areas a little bit more. I'm just going to work on that. Bring that down a bit maybe. Very nice. That's kind of what we're looking for. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go down to here, and we're going to click on our empty sky, and we are going to make it visible. Okay, it's not going to make any changes at the moment. Now we've got this little button here, Track Matte. If you can't see this button, and instead it looks like this, you've got all these little check boxes. What you need to do is hit F4 on the keyboard, and that will bring up this small menu here. And we're going to go to Track Matte, and we're going to go to Luma Matte Inverted. And what that means is that we're inverting this image. If we just go to Luma Matte, all the white bits are going to be visible, and we're going to be able to see the sky. But if we go to Luma Matte Inverted, it means it's going to swap those 2 channels, and this will happen. Can you see that? You can see that the sky has entirely gone. You can probably also see that we've lost a lot of the windows and any other white area on the shot, which is why we have this filler layer. So we're just going to turn on the filler layer really, really quickly, and it brings everything back. And we're going to make a mask, and the way we do that is by selecting the layer, going up to this pen tool, and we're very, very roughly going to make a mask just around the sections which include those other white areas that we want to keep. And what you'll notice once I've done that is it's filled in all of those little gaps. If I just switch it on and off, you can see that now this shot looks seamless. And the only part that's missing is the part that we want to be missing, and that's the sky. You probably also noticed by now there's a lot of jagged edges, there's a lot of blue left, but don't worry, we're going to go in and correct that a little bit later. But before we do that, we're just going to select all of our layers and we're going to pre-compose them. And pre-composing basically puts all of these 3 layers into a new composition just to help us minimize the amount of layers we've got going on at one time. So we're going to go down to Layer, Pre-compose, and we're going to call this House. And I'm going to hit Enter. Make sure Remove All Attributes is checked. It's the only thing we can do at the moment. Enter. As you can see, that's made absolutely no changes apart from the fact that that's now in a new composition. If we want to make any changes to that, if you're in After Effects CS4, you double click it. If you're in anything less than After Effects CS4, you want to press Alt and double click it. What we're going to do now is we're just going to add that sky, just so we kind of know what our composition is going to look like a little bit later. We're just going to drag the sky layer down to the bottom below House, and we're going to move it up, and you can see there that that's beginning to look really, really good. And we're just going to scale that up. And I'm going to use this section of the sky because I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. Look at that, looking really good. As you can see, it starts to look pretty good. Something that I've noticed the problem is this orange is going to show through quite a lot when we do our colour grading. So I'm just going to select the layer. I'm going to go to Effect, Colour Correction, Hue and Saturation, and I'm just going to bring the saturation down almost entirely. You don't want that sky to have any of its own colour really, but we still want to keep some of that contrast. So, the last section of this is going to be to just fix these elements around here. You know, the jagged edges that we've got on the house layer, and the way that we do that is by going into Effect, Matte, and Matte Choker. And immediately you can see the difference that makes. Let me just show you again in case you missed it. Before, jagged edges, looking a bit horrible. After, looks a lot cleaner, looks a lot nicer. And what we're going to do is we're just going to change the geometric softness a little bit. We're going to bring up that choke a little bit more. That's starting to look really, really nice. Choke it maybe just a tad more. Bring up the softness a little, and we're just going to play around with that for a couple of minutes. I want you to remember that what's really, really important about this tutorial is that I'm doing everything really, really quickly for you. My intention for this tutorial is to show you the techniques so that you can then go away and perfect them. So although I'm doing it really quickly, I want you to make sure you spend enough time on each different section of the effect, because when you do that, it's going to look a lot better. Don't just think because I'm doing it quickly, it can be done quickly. A great special effects artist will spend hours tweaking and working on an effect to make it look absolutely perfect. But at the moment, for the purposes of the tutorial, that looks really good. So there we have it. The sky has been replaced. Now what I did as well, and I did this was more of a personal choice than anything, is I created a fake depth of field. A, to disguise some of this blue, and B, because I just personally really like the look of it. And the way that I did that really quickly is I just went into Adjustment Layer. The way that I did that, by the way, is I right-clicked in a blank area down here near my timeline and went to New Adjustment Layer. And I'm just going to hit Enter with the layer selected so that I can change the name of it. I'm going to change it to DOF, Depth of Field. And I'm then going to apply an effect to it, and that effect is called Blur. And it's a special kind of blur called Gaussian blur. And I'm just going to bring that up, and you can see what that starts to do to the image. It starts to blur it out really nicely. And then, with the layer selected still, I'm going to go to the rectangle tool, and I'm going to create a rectangle to the left of the screen. And I'm going to hit M twice on my keyboard, and I'm going to feather that up to quite a high level. And that's created a nice gradiated depth of field that's disguised some of the imperfections, and I think it just makes it look a lot nicer. So that is section 1, the sky replacement. Remember, really take your time with replacing the sky. It's an effect that is really easy to learn, but really difficult to master. And if you want to be really good at special effects, you're going to want to spend that time really mastering it. Okay. And we're going to learn how it's done, and we're going to use adjustment layers. So the first thing I want you to do is right click in a blank space and click New Adjustment Layer, and we're going to name this Master Color Grading. Okay, hit Enter and put that beneath the anamorphic, and we're going to add 3 effects to that: color correction, curves, color correction, hue and saturation. The curves is to add depth, the color correction is to make sure the colors are consistent. Color correction, levels, just for the small tweaks at the end, just to make sure it all looks fantastic. And the first thing we're going to do is I want to show you what this curves does. Okay, it's a long line, as you can see here down, and a 4x4 grid. And what this allows me to do is to click anywhere on the line and create a point, and I can then drag that point up or down, and it manipulates how dark or light the image is. If I drag the bottom part down, we're looking at the shadows here. So if I bring the shadows down ever so slightly, you'll see when I release, it gets darker. Okay, and those shadows start to become more pronounced. Then what I do is I click up near the top, I've made another one, and begin to drag up. And that brings the highlights out. Okay, let me just show you what I've done there. Originally it was really flat, and this has just brought those shadows and those highlights out just enough to make the shot stand out a little bit more. I'm just going to brighten that and darken these just a little bit more, make that S curve, which is what this particular curve adjustment is called, that little bit stronger. Now the problem with that is, when you are doing this, it affects the colour channels as well, because I'm going in the full RGB colour. If I want to affect one colour channel, if I want to affect just the red, I can choose red, green, blue, and if I want to check the sort out the alpha, I can use the alpha mode here. But when I'm using RGB, it darkens all the. Got this histogram here. I'm going to bring the first one, which is on the far right. I'm going to move it left a little bit. This is the white channels. I'm just going to bring it to the beginning where the histogram starts to raise up, and I'm going to do the same with the black point here. And this just makes sure that all the black points and the white points are perfect, so there's nothing's overpowering, nothing's overexposed. I don't have to do too much on this particular shot, but some shots you may find there's a little bit of overexposure, and just tweaking that can sometimes make all the difference. So that's the first section of the colour grading. It's stupidly easy. Okay, it's probably the easiest part because it's not really a creative part. It is quite necessary to make your shot look great. The next part's the bit that's more difficult. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new solid, and it's going to be a kind of a deep green, and I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to put that below the master grading, and you can see everything's gone green. Now we're going to look at something called blending modes. Remember, if you haven't got this up and you can't see this, you want to hit F4, because you'll be able to see this instead. There's two menus. There's this one and this one. If you can see this one, you just want to hit F4 and bring up this one. Okay. And we're going to look at blending modes. Now blending modes are great fun. What they do is they, on a really basic level, using all kinds of algorithms and maths and clever stuff that the people who wrote this program know about, but I don't. They basically what it does is looks at the layer that you're putting the blending mode onto, and then the layer or layers below, and decides how that layer reacts with the layers below. And let me show you how that works. If I click normal, and where it says normal, I'm going to replace it and click on soft light. You'll see what happens is the green is still there, but it's reacting with the coloration of the layers underneath, and it's also reacting with the highlights and the shadows. So where it's lighter or white, the green is lighter, and where it's darker and more shadowy, the green is darker, and it makes it look like a more realistic looking filter. If I was, for example, going to go for darker colour, you can see that does something completely different. What if I want to go to screen? Again, it makes the whole image brighter but still reacts with the shadows and the highlights. So have a play around with blending modes because they're really good fun. But the one that we're going to use today is going to be soft light. You can use overlay, but I prefer soft light. I think it looks better. Okay, now the first thing that I notice, and you probably noticed, is the green is too bright to be a dark and brooding scene. So I'm just going to go to Effect, Color Correction, Curves, and I'm going to bring the colour down a little bit. There we go, that looks a lot better already. It looks a lot better. Something else that you'll notice, that I've noticed, is that orange is still overpowering a little bit. It's still showing through a bit too much. So just above the house layer, I'm going to put another adjustment layer. Now there's no limit to the adjustment layers that you can put on, and there's no limit to the amount of effects that you can apply to any one layer. Just make sure you keep track of them, and the best way to do that really is to name them. So I'm just going to name this one House Color Grading, and of course this I'm going to call the filter. Okay, and on the house color grading, I'm going to go into effects. I'm going to go into color correction, hue and saturation, and bring the saturation down ever so slightly. I don't want to affect anything apart from the house layer. That's looking really good. I'm going to go to the master, and I'm going to bring that up a little bit. I'm just going to, there we go, that's looking quite good. I'm just going to bring the darkness down a little bit. I'm going to bring the highlights down a little bit. I'm just going to tweak it, and like I said before, you want to spend the time doing this, yeah, and tweaking it and making it look great, because that's how you're going to come up with a really good effect. Let's make this darker. There we go, and there we have a far nicer looking shot. Now the last thing I'm going to do in terms of the this part of the colour grading, the bit where the second step, the coloration, is I'm going to add a diffuse, because I like diffusing a shot. It makes it look a little bit more I just think it looks nicer, to be honest with you. You can miss this part out if you really want to, but what I'm going to do, and just follow this along for now, I'm going to hit Control D with my house composition selected to duplicate it. I'm going to go to Effect, I'm going to go to Gaussian Blur, and I'm going to bring the Gaussian Blur right up, and then I'm going to hit Soft Light again. And you can see what that does. I'll just show you now quickly. Before, after. And it just adds a little bit of depth. I don't know if you can see that. It's just a little bit. It's more than the slightly less than the eye can probably take in and notice if you're just watching the shot. But for those of you watching the tutorial, you'll definitely see the difference. And I'm just going to go into the house color grading and bring that saturation down just a tad. And you can see that that just has added a nice fuzzy